All righty. Welcome. I am Heather Pierce Campbell, the legal website warrior. Welcome to another episode of Guts, Grit, and Great Business. I am super excited after taking some time away from recording to have a conversation with somebody who I just really think the world of. You guys are going to love her. I am so happy to bring on Mikelann Valterra today. Welcome, Mikelann.
Hello from Seattle. I'm so happy to be here.
That's right. Another Seattleite. We were just teasing that you're across the water now, so I can't
Yes.
throw a rock and hit you.
Nope.
Um,
Not anymore. No.
not anymore. It's all right. Life is still good. But Mikelann, for those of you that don't know Mikelann is an author, a keynote speaker, and money coach who helps women transform their relationship with money to create a life they love. And don't worry, if you're not a woman, you're still going to benefit from this conversation today. We're going to dig into some really important things around money, money management, how to manage your money, and really deal with your money in the right way as an entrepreneur. Mikelann, for over 20 years, has been a thought leader in the field of financial psychology. Her strong background in emotional intelligence, paired with her practical money strategies, enable her clients to consciously design their life while escaping financial stress and anxiety. When she's not working with clients, you can find Mikelann on the dance floor, indulging her love of Argentine tango. There it is, Mikelann. You promised it would show up. There it is.
There it is. Right at the beginning, this podcast today will actually be only about tango.
Leave. We're just kidding. It's not about money. It's about tango.
Yeah. So I am a money coach. Hello.
But let's talk about the tango. Tell me when you got started and how you got started in tango.
Oh my gosh. Well, everyone needs a hobby. I know we'll talk about money coaching, but when I empty nested, I had more time and here's the funny thing. I was actually debating between taking up golf or tango. Talk
Those
about
are
two totally different
very
things, right?
different.
Because
Yes.
I'm a business owner and I work plenty and I absolutely love what I do. But it's no fun to spend all your time working if you don't enjoy your personal life. It's like, what's the point of all the money that we are trying to make and manage and all that good stuff if you don't enjoy life? It's not all about the past or the
Yeah.
future, right? So, anyways, long story short, I picked tango. And the sole reason I picked it was because I thought, golf is too cold. I'll never be warm enough. If I know you've got plenty of guys that listen to your podcast. There's huge golfers in Seattle. I've got dear friends. So I picked tango based on the fact that it was an indoor sport.
Oh my gosh, that's
And the
funny.
rest they say is history.
Right? Well, I
Yeah,
love your practical thinking. I'm very practical
it
myself, so.
started very practical, right? But then I got completely addicted to this crazy, amazing hobby. But yeah, there it is.
Oh my gosh, I love it. So do you dance competitively?
I do. I mean, tango is a bloody hard dance. Oh my gosh. If I'd
Mhm.
known then that I was picking what many consider to be the hardest dance, who knows? I didn't know what I was doing other than it was indoor, right? But as the years go by, a lot of people that dance tango dance socially, as do
Yeah.
I. And so I'm out dancing with different people a lot. And Seattle has a fabulous tango social community. But I also am going to be competing at the National Tango Championship in April.
That's so
Yeah.
exciting. Well, it makes me think that I saw something along the way, which is why I asked you about that. That's super fun. And,
Fun.
really even just what you said at the start of that little story about the importance of enjoying our lives,
Yeah.
I think for entrepreneurs, there was another gentleman that I had on the podcast some time ago, David Wood, and he talked about how so much of his time as a business coach with entrepreneurs is helping them remember
Yeah.
all the other things that they enjoy doing. They get so sucked into the business, so
Oh,
time
absolutely.
intensive, so right. And so even just the other day at the start, here at the start of the new year, I literally went and created a new list, like things besides work that I love doing, right? Or
It's
things that
so
even that I love
important.
doing more than work. I know.
Right. Well, and for me on that note, it is kind of practical sounding. It makes me leave my office and go to the dance studio and work out and practice because I mean, better than anyone, self-employed business owners, we could literally never leave.
Well, that's right. And I think it's
Yes.
an easy habit to slip into, like, oh, just one more thing or one more email or
Mhm.
whatever it is at the end of the day. And no, we have to have reasons to wrap it up. We have to provide not only the structure, but the incentive to change the model if we don't love
Yeah.
how it's going, right?
Well, and I think it's even more important now because in terms of, wherever we are in the pandemic, that so many of us have gone to working at home because I've got clients, money coaching clients all over the world, but I had an outside office at the beginning of the pandemic where
I
I would go and
remember that.
have a office to go to,
When
you
you
know.
and I
and-
first connected, you were
Yeah.
on the bubble about letting go of that office.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And I've had an outside office for years and years and years and years. And my local clients loved it. They'd come and work with me in person. And distance clients does I mean, they don't care, right? Where
Right.
I am. But so many local people stayed on Zoom because
Mhm.
they got used to it. It wasn't so much over time the fear of COVID. They felt like, you know what? Zoom works.
Yeah, it works. It saves
It,
me travel time. It saves me
yeah.
parking. It's.
Right. But what I have found, so I love now working from a home office,
Mm,
but now it's so tempting to just get on email at night and because it's right there.
mhm.
So, for me, I have to get out and dancing is what gets me out, which is it's a huge, huge, good, positive thing.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. And I think it's a great way to start off this conversation. So, I'd love to know and for people that don't know that much about you, I'd love for you to go backwards in time and share a little of your own origin story around
Mm.
money, financial stuff, how you got into money coaching, what it was about that that really pulled you.
Yep. So here's the origin story. So my undergrad degree was in economics,
Mhm.
which hey, that makes sense. I was fascinated with all that, but when I finished my undergrad, I didn't know what I wanted to do, and so for your listeners that used to listen to kung fu or watch kung fu, I wandered the earth like Cain for many years. Many years trying to figure out what I wanted to do. Traveled, spent time in South America, all that stuff. And when I came
Mm.
back, I actually decided I wanted to get a master's. Oh, you'll never guess this one. A master's in consciousness studies and
Oh,
transpersonal
wow.
psychology,
Mm.
which, you know what? I love it. It was great. But it's like, well, what do you do with undergrad in economics and a master's in, we'll just say psychology? And I was torn because, here I am at that point in my mid or later 20s going, okay, on the one hand, I thought about becoming a financial planner because I was fascinated with money and the power that it held.
Mm.
But I also debated becoming a psychotherapist. And so talk about two totally different fields. Oh my gosh. So about that time, I met the pioneer of money coaching, a wonderful woman that you know as well, named Karen
Mm.
McCall. And I was working at a think tank dedicated to the study of human consciousness. Like, what else do you do with a master's in consciousness? But you work at a think tank studying consciousness. And Karen McCall, this very famous money coach, came to speak to us about all sorts of alternative ways of looking at money and the emotions of money, the psychology of money, so many different things. And oh my gosh, it was like a thunderbolt hit me. And I went up to Karen. I said, I want to do what you do. Will you train me? And she had barely started training new money coaches at that time. I was like the second person she ever trained, one of the very first.
Mm.
The rest they say is history. That was 25 years ago. And so what I would say to your listeners, because a lot of times people say, okay, well, but what is money coaching? Right?
Mhm.
I'd say that maybe the simplest way to say it is it used to be, Heather, that people would either see a credit counselor if they had debt
Mhm.
issues, a financial planner if they were looking at investments and net worth. But the reality is, I think many people are dealing with both. Business owners are no exception, trying to figure out how to use credit and stay out of debt, how to build net worth.
Mhm.
And neither of those fields is really equipped to deal with the emotional side of money.
Mhm.
So money coaching looks at both. It looks at the emotional, psychological side, why we do what we do around money, which is so
Mhm.
hugely important for business owners. And then it looks at the practical side. It's like, okay, how do you manage your cash flow?
Yeah.
How do you deal with credit? Yes, of course we want to build net worth, but how do you deal with this month in and month out cash flow so that you're not stressed and you know that you're okay? And so money coaching is super practical, and then it literally teaches people how to manage their cash flow, but it
Mhm.
honors and looks at why we do what we do. In
Mm.
my field, it's called your money script, your
Mhm.
programming around money, if you will. Your money mindset is probably the term that I think a lot of your listeners have heard.
Mm.
And it's all important. You can't only look at the practical side of money. Nobody's a robot.
No, that's right.
Money's super emotional.
That's right. And as soon as you start saying words like budget or financial tracking or whatever, like I think certain people just tune out. Like it just
Right.
feels hard. They can't connect with it. They don't really understand how it fits or how it's going to change things. And yeah, I think more and more people understand that there really is that relationship piece, like to think that you actually have a relationship to money that becomes paramount. And, even before going live, we were talking about how nobody gets trained on this stuff. Like growing up, nobody really gets taught how to deal with money the right way. And even for folks that have, I should say, even for kids that have parents that are transparent around their own money journeys, they still have to figure it out for themselves, right? And a lot of that figuring out, I think, ends up happening in our adult lives.
Oh, it's so true. And if I had a dime for everyone that said that they had either never been taught about money, or a lot of times it's even more than that, you're not, you're told you shouldn't talk about money. Forget being
Mm,
taught. A lot of
yes.
people are raised that it's actually wrong to talk about money. It's, shh, don't talk about that. Don't ask,
Yes.
it's how many kids, I mean, kids are curious. They're naturally
Mm,
curious. And how many kids at the dinner table at some point say, hey, dad, how much money do you make?
mhm.
Or whatever. And they're taught to be like, oh, don't say that. Don't ask that. So
Yeah.
we become adults with
Mm.
this sense of like, okay, I get that money is important, and we think everyone else knows how to do it. The truth is, most of us are not taught. And so here we are reaching
Mhm.
adulthood feeling like, oh, everyone else must know how to do it except us.
Yeah. Well, and even for those, I was raised in a home where my dad talked a lot about money. There were some downsides to that, right? There were some positives, but there were also some downsides based on kind of his own approach around money. But luckily, I mean, I feel grateful for some of the early lessons around money that I got in my life, which led me to becoming an entrepreneur and have influenced me in a variety of ways. And yet, like what you're saying about folks who, because I ended up marrying somebody who comes from a background like the kind you're talking about, like, oh, we don't talk about money. It's either not okay or it's unnecessary. He had two parents that were employed in, the 80s by Procter and Gamble, making great salaries. They didn't really have to think about money.
Right.
Right. And so they also didn't really need to talk about it. They had plenty of it. And, for where they were in the country at that time. So,
Hmm.
he also just had a completely different experience around money, and it's
But it's like, what's all the fuss about? Why do we need to be talking about this? It's just
yeah,
sort of there and handled.
yeah, totally. That's it. And so, it's been such an interesting dynamic in our relationship to try to sort that out. Like, how do you even have a conversation around money?
Hmm.
Right? I mean, it's that basic. And that's been a fascinating thing for me to like witness in my adult life. Like we're really talking about fundamentals and getting down to the basics in so many, I think, relationships and even just in the conversation with ourself, and particularly for those of us who are also entrepreneurs, right? There's a whole different layer added on.
Oh, there absolutely is. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. About half my money coaching clients are self-employed and entrepreneurs, and here they are dealing with now. Not only it's not like your personal finances go away,
No.
you have a business owner, and now you're like, oh, okay, I have to deal with all my personal finances, my business finances. Like,
Mm,
holy smokes, Batman! So it can feel like double trouble if you don't feel comfortable initially talking about money, handling
yeah.
money, managing personal finances, and then you go into becoming a business owner for all sorts of wonderful reasons, it can be hugely stressful for entrepreneurs.
Yeah, and and what I've observed along the way in my own journey, and I'd be curious, your insights on, because I think a lot of people are thinking like, okay, I get it. Maybe I need support in this area, but how do I connect with the right person?
Right.
Right. And part of it is like, I think some of it is just trial and error, right? I've worked with some, like, I even think of my own journey in finding a CPA, looking and exploring like various bookkeeping services, like all the things that you have to plug into your money life, right?
Mhm.
As an entrepreneur. And it can make all the difference to be working with the right person who just says, "Hey, have you thought about doing it this way?" Or here's a couple small changes that you can make that would have a really big impact. And just even in the last couple years, I've been working with a woman who is my CPA that like it's out, I call it baby steps. Like every time we get on a new meeting and I get to report like, "Oh, I did this quarter or I met this goal or something," even when it feels teeny tiny, she is so great about like celebrating it with me and being like, "No, that's actually a really big deal." It
It
can take
is.
people a really long time to get to that place or whatever. And I just feel like having those right people involved in your money life, like, really makes a world of difference.
Yeah, I think of it like you want to put together a team, and there's going to be different people on teams, but even in just to simplify it for a second, in personal finances, there's still a team. You
Mm,
may have a CPA on your team. You may have your estate planner. You may have,
mm.
attorneys. I mean, there's lots of different people. You may have someone who you're talking to about insurance,
Yep.
right? And so it's like, who are these people, and how do you find the right people? There's your financial planner to help you with your
Yeah.
retirement. I tend to think of them, someone once said that money coaches are very similar to like the family doctor, whereas
Mhm.
we're sort of at the center of the hub, and everyone around us is a specialist. And it makes sense because I refer people to all these specialists all the time for
Yep.
it's referred to investing help in terms of setting up a retirement plan, or refer to a CPA, or refer to insurance specialists or things like that. But teams are so important because everyone has a different expertise and you've got
Mhm.
different expertise,
Mhm.
but it has to be people that you can talk to.
Yeah. Well, and my advice to people on that particular piece is like, you keep going and you keep trying until you connect with the right people.
Right.
Right? You don't just throw your hands up and be like, "Well, this is it." Like, one example in our own personal money story is my husband kind of inherited a financial planner from his mom. Like, well, this is who she worked with. And like, there was this kind of relationship already there. And I'm like, but are you super happy with his services? And he was like, well, no, like the part that I manage, like way outperformed the part that he manages. And I just was like, well, what are you doing? Why is there this loyalty to this person if and so money's also funny that way, how people can get
It is.
into
It is.
these.
It's so funny because I have heard so many similar stories where people inherit financial
Yes.
planners or
From
accountants
their
or whatever
family,
from
or
their
my
family.
dad worked with this insurance person or
And
whatever.
they're people that they don't feel comfortable talking to. They
Mhm,
don't like their communication. They feel disempowered. I like, as you know, I work with a lot of women,
mhm.
and they often will feel like someone is almost talking over them, or whatever it is, because
Yep.
they've inherited this person who was probably a really, really good person, but not for them. And so it
Yes.
doesn't occur to people. It's like, no, you actually should like your accountant.
Yeah.
You should actually like these people work for you, right?
Right. You should get off of that meeting feeling like That's awesome. We made progress. I'm one step closer to my goals,
Mhm.
right?
And I feel heard. And the thing that I say, and this would be true for men or women, you want to feel like you can ask the same question several times and not feel dumb. Because
Yeah.
and I know no professional would ever mean to do that, but it's also money is really interesting. Barbara Stanny, who now goes by Barbara Hewson, wrote a lot of wonderful books like Prince Charming Isn't Coming, How Women Get Smart About Money. And she talks about the learning process around money for men and women. And when you initially learn something that you're not familiar with,
Mm,
it would make sense that you barely heard a lot of the information,
yep.
right? You deal with your clients in your capacity as a lawyer. And then the second time I hear you telling me all this stuff, I'm like, oh, okay, some of that's familiar.
Mm,
And now I can actually ask you a few questions.
mm,
And the third time you tell it to me, I'm like, oh, okay, now I'm really starting to understand, right? But that's like
mm.
normal adult learning. And yet, for some reason, with money, we have so much, shame and blame and all sorts of stuff in our past that
Yeah.
we think we should understand it initially, the very first time we hear someone talking. And then we feel bad if we have to ask questions,
Yeah.
And so we just want to be really, really comfortable with A, it takes a while
Yeah.
to learn, and B, you want someone who you can really, really communicate with.
Totally. And I assume, I mean, based on your work in this industry for years and years, that you see a people at obviously a variety of levels, even when they come in the door. So let's pretend we're talking to folks who are in a high stress state about money, right? Let's talk to the people who are like, look, I need some starter steps for calming down on the money side of things, and then move into some of the more supportive, proactive strategies that are going to help on the building side, right? Does that make sense? What do you say to those people? Where do you start with the folks who are like, look,
They're so
maybe my,
stressed, they're having a hard time sleeping.
yeah, totally.
Yeah. Well, so, the APA did an interesting survey, and just to state the obvious, 20% of Americans feel a lot of financial stress. And
Yeah.
and the reason I'm sharing that as in their top three stressors in their life.
Well, and I'm surprised that that's only 20%,
Well,
honestly.
it's closer to 50%, but depends on if they say like chronic acute.
Yes.
They defined it as
Day-to-day
significant sort of
stress.
stress, and a lot of people are still very secretive about it.
Yes.
But the reason that we're saying that is just to normalize that you're in good company.
Mm,
Tons of people are super stressed about money. So first of all, it really helps to just talk about it. I mean,
mm.
just to be able to unburden and go through all the reasons why you're stressed, because there are many people that just don't have anyone to talk to about money. So
Oh, and I
talking.
this yes, this point that you're making right now, what is coming to mind as I recently read statistics on it was tying um basically our ability to talk about difficult things to health impacts, right?
Right.
And it was saying women who are in unhappy marriages long term and who don't talk about it, their rates of cancer, of all sorts of illness, including terminal illness, dramatically higher, like hundreds of times higher than women who were in an unhappy marriage and simply talked about it.
Since we talked about it.
Yeah.
It's huge. It is huge. When I've got new clients and we're talking about however you want to say it, what's not working for you. Let's talk about the
Yeah.
pain point. Let me tell me your story.
Yep.
Oh, just feeling heard and having someone. It's a very, very big deal. I think on a brass tacks point of view,
Mm.
one of the things that helps people is to simplify their finances. I'm a huge proponent of what I call elegant simplicity, because there, wherever this happened back in maybe the past 5 or 10 years, there was this movement towards, for every single thing I need, I'm going to open up an account.
Yes, like a sub account and a
A
sub
sub
account, and
account,
you
right?
do all this stuff.
Right.
Yes.
And just because you can open up an account doesn't mean you should open an account. And part of
Mm,
it was the proliferation of online banking
yep.
and making it easy, and they make money when you open accounts and things like that. But the more accounts you have, the more money fog you are in. And this is where what I would say is going to be a little bit not in the same boat as kind of the profit first way of
Mhm.
looking at things, which is very oriented towards many, many accounts. I love the principles of profit first. And there's a lot of powerful stuff in there for entrepreneurs. So it's not, I'm not saying throw the principles out, but for most people, having many, many accounts actually is correlated to financial stress and anxiety, because the more
Mm.
accounts you have,
The
the
more
more to
tracking.
book, to track.
Mm.
It's kind of like who's on first base. I don't know.
Yeah.
And for entrepreneurs, we need to know how, where's our money going and how much do we need to make. But if you've got to look at 8 different accounts, no wonder you're stressed. No
Yeah.
wonder you're stressed. So it's, yeah, I push on this really hard with new clients. And, can we simplify? Because you can run multi millions of dollars with very few accounts. It's not lots of money is
Mm.
not correlated to number of accounts.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
just not.
And you can have lots of money, but simple systems behind it, right? You could have
No,
lots of money in the
exactly.
bank and be running a
Mhm.
paper system.
Oh, totally. Yeah, I mean, the average millionaire in the United States has one primary checking account and a couple of credit cards, right?
Mhm.
I mean, it's not correlated to the average millionaire having 8 different checking accounts. It's just not,
Yeah.
right? Because they know that, people with money know where their money goes. And so they make it so
Mhm.
that they can very, very easily see it.
Yeah. So this, I think you called it elegant simplicity, right? What else do people need to know about that? Like, what are some other ways that they can apply that aside from maybe not following some of the advice out there, right?
Well, so the elegant simplicity we can take in a lot of different ways. Like for a
Mhm.
business owner who's, if you've got new startup business owners or someone that's brand new, I would be looking at, let's set up one primary account. Let's set up perhaps 2 savings accounts.
Mm.
Oh my gosh, what if you had one credit card? I mean, again, let's not have a lot of places to look.
Mm.
And then related to that, me as a money coach, I love the idea of a very beautiful spending plan,
Yeah.
right? But the way, and you could go back and forth about the word budget. People don't hate that word. But a lot of people hate that word because it's
Mhm.
so deprivation based. It's so diety,
Yeah.
right? But
Right.
the difference for a business owner is, I want business owners to be able to very simply and easily look at cash flow
Mm.
as opposed to P&L, because it doesn't always matter. P&L can get very complicated from an accounting point of view. It's not that it doesn't
Mm.
matter. It is important, right? But from a cash flow point of view, how much money do you need to take home? How
Mm.
much money do you need to live in your personal life? And so when you're talking about how to de-stress, actually, I would take it over on the personal side and say,
Yeah.
let's look at how much money you need to make.
That's such
It's
a powerful starting
it's
point.
it's a hugely powerful, and it's empowering, right? I
Mhm.
mean, it's so like, oh, okay. Because a lot of people in their personal life may have other income streams,
Mm.
everything from child support to spouses to whatever it is, and they may be putting undue stress on their business. We don't know.
Mm.
So the question is, what do you truly need your business to generate to take home? And then let's work it from there.
Yeah. Well, and it's so interesting because that seems so fundamental, and yet I think so many people, that's not where they start,
It's not where they start.
right? They're
No.
trying to manage what they have, and it's like, sorting out a mess that you've already created versus working backwards and saying, like with the basic building blocks, what do I need? Layer on, layer on. But having gone through that exercise, I did that. First of all, I refused to do that exercise for years. And I'll tell you why. I went through some really hard, we'll just call it childbearing years, where we spent lots of money on medical and IVF and all this crazy stuff, right?
Mhm.
And I was committed to that path. Like, we're going to do what it takes to get our kiddos here, and then we'll be done with this hard part of the process. And that piece alone was so stressful. I could not sit down and look at the money side of it. I was just like, it's going to freak me out, and I just don't need to add that stress to myself right now. So I didn't.
Right.
Once I'd had my daughter and I knew I was done with those years, and it took us a year or two, a couple years probably, to pay off the medical bills related to all of that. Once we were done with the medical bills, then I had capacity to sit down and actually look at the money, right?
Yeah.
And it was
Well,
a
I love that. It goes to timing. It goes to
Mhm.
timing. People know when they're ready to look,
Yeah.
when they have capacity, and also when they're ready to ask for help.
Yes.
It's very personal, and timing is super, super personal.
Yeah. Totally. And, and then when I did do the exercise, it was super transformational. It was like, oh, this is like it was more money than I expected that we needed to support our life because I worked from the standpoint of what do we need to live, right? And then looking at my husband's income, what I needed to generate, how to make our financial and savings goals work, etc. But it
Mhm.
was eye-opening and I had to sit with the number for a few days, but then I could shift into like, okay, what is the plan? This is how much I need to generate every month. What is the plan to do that, right? And then
What I love about that, what you're sharing is it combined it, you were able to go into your I would say a combination of your drive and your creativity. Because once you have that number, even though you're initially like, oh my
yeah.
goodness, it's a little bit more than I thought, right?
Woo!
Woo, let's fan ourselves, right? But once you've got the number, then you're like, okay, okay. Because
Mhm.
what I find happens a lot of times with business owners is they say, I need to make more money.
Yeah.
Well, okay, what how much more, right? Like
Right. And do you
just
really need to?
and do you really need to? And are you just going to
Mhm.
work to work to work? Like, how do you know when you can take off and go dance tango? Like,
Right.
are you done? You
Right.
know? And so it's really different to say, okay, once you've got
Mhm.
the number, most people are really smart, creative people. And so having some specific numbers, AKA income goals,
Mhm.
allows people to be like, okay, got it. There's
Yeah,
probably 3 to 10 ways I could arrive to make this number. Now that I know it,
that's right.
let's do it, right? And this can go all the way into money metaphysics and
Mhm.
the law of attraction. And I mean, everyone's going to go in a different path around that, but you've got to give yourself, even if you're like, I forget all that metaphysical stuff, but you've got to give yourself a specific number
Mhm.
so that you can bring it into reality. Working just to work and saying you need to make more
Yeah.
just leads down to a path of stress and overwork.
Yeah. Well, I heard it described in this way, right? Our brains are goal achieving machines,
Yes,
right?
yes.
And you don't like
Mhm.
it, your brain naturally wants to work towards a goal. It's just how humans are designed. And so if you don't know the goal, right? You don't have the outcome selected, it feels chaotic. It
It to-
feels hard. And it doesn't need to. And so I think that thinking about it in that way, like, look, your brain wants a job to do. It's back there being busy whether you want it to or not. Why not have it be busy on the right thing?
Totally. So I'll tell a story on this exact subject. So I was single for 14 years. I got divorced, many many years ago, and I recently repartnered. Well, so I've been totally on my own financially, running my own ship, and I can do my own exercises around. Okay, here's what I need in my personal life. Now go forth. Exactly what we were just talking about. Well, so I got engaged. I'm living with my great love, and we get to the end of the year, and I'm like, honey, we've got to do our joint spending plan so that I know how much money I need to make. And it
Mhm.
was a really interesting conversation because, he had been partnered, years ago with someone who just wasn't that great with money and was not a super positive part of their life. And so it was an interesting transition for him.
Mhm.
Goodness, if you're going to marry a money coach, get ready to talk about money, right? He's like, He's like, yeah, let's keep talking about money. Yay, But what it took me a while to really explain to him is no, you don't understand. This is not all for you, honey. I need to know how much I need to work this year because I want to go dancing a lot with you. I want to travel a lot with you. I want to have a lot of time. So I have to know how much money I need to make. Like what is that number? Right. And
Yeah.
and it had changed very dramatically for me because I moved and whatever, we all have
Mm.
all sorts of different subjects in our life around money. When your mortgage changes or when you move
Mhm.
cities or when you get married or have kids or empty nest, the number changes.
Yeah.
What's
Yeah.
the new number? I needed it, right? And now once I had it, I was like, got it. And then I ran upstairs and went to town putting together my business spending plan. So that was like
Mm.
mad scientist with a beaker up here, uh, trying to be like, okay, now I know what I'm doing with my business this year. But until I knew how much I needed to bring home,
Mhm.
I could not figure out how many hours I needed to work or how many clients I needed for that matter. I mean, these
Right.
hugely important
Mhm.
subjects if you are self-employed.
Yeah. Well, and if you're self-employed and also in a relationship, like your point about like, I want to be able to do these other things with you and enjoy them, right? Like this is partly how we calm the nervous system, right? Is do this level of planning so that we know this is what my business can look like this year. These are my earning goals. Here's what it takes to get there. And I can go do all this other stuff and enjoy my time off. I can plan these vacations. I can afford, these vacations, whatever.
Right. Oh, absolutely. And the beauty is people think that money coaches think about money all the time. I mean, sure, during the day when I'm working with clients and, drilling into the center of the earth with them. But, by night, I don't think about money a lot because
Yeah.
I have my plans. Do I keep them updated? Yes, I do. Do I do my
Mm.
monthly cash flow plan? Yes, I do. It helps keep me relaxed. It helps keep me
Mhm.
stress free around money. I know things are okay.
Yeah.
Or I know, guess what? I think we're going to have an adjustment to the plan. Okay, I get to adjust the plan. You never want a plan that you feel like is in cement.
Yeah.
Things change, opportunities come. What if some fabulous tango festival pops up and I want to go to Ireland in the fall? I want to be able to adjust for that if that's what I want to do.
Mm. Totally. Yeah. It's about having that structure that also supports our flexibility.
Mhm.
Um, so you've talked a little bit about simplifying. We've talked about getting out of the brain fog, right? Kind of the overwhelm, which takes really looking at things. Let's talk a little bit about some of the emotional stuff with money, right? Because I think a lot of people just don't start because there is so much either guilt or fear or, negative emotions built into their money experience. What do you say to those folks, right? That feel like, especially the folks who are, because I think this is a really common story in our adult lives of, oh, I should be farther along. I did those things wrong for all those years. Even in the context of my own relationship, like how long it's taken us to even have a quote unquote productive conversation around money, right? Way longer than I would have liked it to.
Yeah, no, I really hear you on that. That I think there's two pieces. Part of it is really knowing a little bit about what motivates us around money, which kind of gets into more money personality stuff. But
Hmm.
but I think the big piece is being able to talk about our money story, our money history, our money autobiography. And like so many other parts of our life, the way that we were raised as children does have a big impact on us. But the other thing that I think sometimes gets missed because there's so much around, yes, how we were raised and what we heard our parents do. Yes, that's absolutely true. But, a lot of us, I mean, we've been adults for quite a while at this point,
Hmm.
right? Like I'm in my 50s. Yes, that's lovely to talk about my childhood. That's all fascinating and important. But I had some trauma dramas around money in my 20s and my 30s and my
Right.
40s, And so that's part of my money story.
Yeah.
So being able to write your money story, talk about your money story, share your money story. And it really goes into this piece around financial forgiveness.
Mm,
So many people feel like somehow they should have had a perfect story. Now,
yeah.
as soon as you say that out loud, we know that's silly. But I really encourage people to see their money story, all the things that's happened around money, as the most fabulous screenplay or movie ever, full of twists and turns and cliffhangers. I mean, oh my gosh, everyone's money story is a really good read. We have, as adults,
Mhm.
really led fascinating, interesting lives, right? And so
Yeah.
at some point, we have to be able to see, yes, that's part of my story. That those are old chapters. I'm in a new chapter. And if we don't forgive ourselves for what we consider money mistakes,
Mhm.
it really starts to affect your health. right? It
Ugh.
affects your psychological health.
Mm.
And honestly, I mean, Heather, it affects your physical health too, you know?
Oh, right. Now, one of the recent things that I've had several guests talk about and that I've shared even, and I think they're conversations that are not yet published, but a huge part of my learning last year talking about the physical health journey was realizing like a huge, cannot be overstated, huge part of our baseline health has to do with our ability to forgive,
Yeah.
right? Because emotions stay embedded and they can create some real problems in our physical selves when we stay stuck in an experience or a trauma or a story, whatever it is. And some of this stuff, yes, it originates in childhood, but you're right. We have traumas and experiences all along the way. And
All along the way. I mean, when I think about, a client sharing that they wanted to beat themselves up because they had lost so much money in the '08
financial
Great reset,
crisis.
right?
Yep.
The
Mm,
Great Recession, as sometimes it's called, and
mm,
and we need to be able to talk about that, but we also want to be able to look at what are the positives that have come out of this.
mm,
Because if you lost money, your life went sometimes in a different direction, but things happened
mm.
in that direction that may not have happened otherwise that could potentially also be positive.
Yeah. Oh, hugely. I mean, I love your idea of thinking about your own money story like a cinematic drama, right? And
It is.
when you think about it in that way, it really does come alive. Like there's a vibrance for all of us in our money stories because of our losses, our successes, our turning points, our achievements, our resilience, right? How many of us have been through some real low points with money and we figured out how to turn it around or to, cover massive losses. And so I think, that makes it an experience that feels less shameful.
Totally. Story is story, right? And
Yeah.
we're wired as humans to appreciate story, tell stories,
Mm,
get stories, find meaning
relate
in
to other
stories.
people's stories.
Right, exactly.
Yes.
And as you and I know, people just don't talk about money. And so
Mm,
if you're out with your girlfriends for drinks, it's fun to say, I mean, fun may not quite be the right word, but let's share a chapter of our screenplay, right? Let's share a
mhm.
chapter of our story, because we know so many intimate things about our close friends or our loved ones, but a lot of times we don't know some of the twists and turns about their money story.
Yeah.
It's just chapters in our lives.
Yeah. No, it's huge. What I mean, obviously we've talked about a lot today, but what else, like if there was something that you wish more people knew, either about money, about handling money, about calming anxiety around money, what would that be?
Oh, that's such a good question. I mean, I wish, very similar to what we were just talking about. I wish everybody thought about it as journey as opposed
Mm,
to destination, right? We're so focused on the future. Retirement is
yeah.
one thing, right? Or we beat ourselves up around the past, around debt,
Mhm.
maybe. But we don't live in the past or the future. We live in the present, and we've got to enjoy the journey. And we're all where we are. If it's like saying it's okay to be where you are, and
Mhm.
you're just going to continue forward on the journey. There's lots of wonderful positive things in front of you if we can lay down this I should have known, beating ourselves up
Yeah.
around money, and go, you know what? It's all knowable, it's all doable. Everybody's ready for their next chapter.
Mm,
And I personally believe that everybody can create a life they love by, deciding to look at how they want their money life to look. It's so within
yes.
your control.
I love that. That's such an empowering thing to wrap up on. For folks that are wanting to get in touch with you, learn more about your work, I know you're based here in Seattle, but you've got clients all around the world,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah, so I love working with women that the way I would say, Heather, is they're totally rocking it in so many ways in their life.
Mhm.
Money is the piece that's driving them crazy, or it's just the part of their life that's not quite working and they're stressed. So if people
Mhm.
resonate with that, I would just encourage them to go to the website Seattle Money Coach,
Mhm.
seattlemoneycoach.com, and book a free discovery call. And what I do is I take 20 minutes and figure out what is the number one thing that's keeping you from feeling in control of your finances. So book a free
Mm,
discovery call is what I vote people do, but there's tons of free resources. There's a ebook on how to not be stressed about money, that men and women would all benefit from, that they can download on the site as well.
I love that. So, folks, if you're listening, we're going to share her links. And are you on social media, Mikelann? Do you do much social media? And
Yeah,
it's okay if the answer is no, by the way.
yeah, yeah, it's okay. Yeah. Well, I'm not on TikTok. No, Seattle Money Coach is on, Facebook and on Pinterest, and LinkedIn is Mikelann Valterra.
Mhm.
Twitter, oh yeah, Instagram. It's all Seattle Money Coach.
Okay, awesome. We'll share your social media links as well. So if you're listening, be sure to pop over, check out those show notes at legalwebsitewarrior.com/podcast. Connect with Mikelann, and for sure, if you are in the category of folks that are ready for the type of support that she offers, connect with her. That sounds like an amazing introductory call, Mikelann. Um, what final point would you like to leave with people today?
I think that everybody can have a next chapter that is so full of happiness around money. I
Mm,
really think that everybody can get to the point where they're not stressed
yeah.
around money, and that they can feel in control of money so they can create the life that they love. I really, truly find that everybody can move to that place and use it to create the life that I honestly think people deserve.
I love it. Well, you guys heard it here. This can happen for you in 2023. And we invite you into the next chapter of your own money journey. Mikelann, I'm so happy that you could join me today. It's been such a joy to hear a bit about your work and the ways that you really help people not only change their financial lives, but change their lives based
Change
on
their
the
lives.
work around money.
I love my work. I feel so, so fortunate. So thanks for having me.
Totally. Look forward to talking to you soon.